All right, well, in this section, what we want to talk about is the create statement, where we want to create an object, which is a table, and then we're going to try and modify it and alter that table, and then we're going to get rid of it and drop that table. One thing that's nice about relational databases today, whether it's SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Vertica, and more, they allow you to have different ways of creating it. So they can auto-generate the script for you or give you a template of the SQL statement so you don't have to memorize it letter for letter. There's also what we call a GUI, G-U-I, a graphical user interface that makes it easy to execute that command. So for instance, if I wanted to create a table without using SQL, and I know the name of the fields that I'm creating in that table, then I can simply go through, for SQL Server, SS Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, which is SSMS. I can go to tables, do a right click and click on new table and actually use the GUI interface, where in this case, I'm trying to create a table that has a column called name and choose the data type. The data type is a very important characteristic as you're creating your tables. Why? Because you want to make sure you're able to do certain functionalities for the fields that you need. For instance, I need to make sure that telephone numbers are numeric and are 10 digits. Then I want to make sure that I use something for that. So I can use different functions that allows me to verify the telephone number. Another example is the date field. I need to check if something is older than 30 days or more than 60 days old, plus, minus, and so on. So anything that has to do with calculations with dates, that I want to make sure that I use the right data type for a date. So if I'm using date of birth and I want to check if someone is 20, 21 years old or so, then the easiest way to do is once I define that field as a date field, then it's easy to use those functions. It's much simpler. And that is why when you're using a field or defining a field, you always want to use what's appropriate. For example, a name, I should not use a date field for that. I should not use geography, more for location and so on. I should not use decimal, which is for numeric and numeric computations and numbers and so on. I should use something that's a character. Most commonly used is varchar, variable character. A name is usually about 50 characters or less, so we can use 50. If it's a field where you think you might have more than 50 characters, the combination of the first name, middle name, and last name might be more than 50, then you might want to add it. So that's usually the maximum length of how many characters we expect in there. And 50 is usually good for a name. Suppose we want to put date of birth in there. Then when it comes to the data type, I want to use the right form of data type that goes for date of birth. So we're going to look for something such as date for our data type. So right now, if I was to close this out, it's going to ask me for a name for my object. And I can call it employee date of birth table and store it. The reason for this exercise is just to show how the GUI could allow us to create a table without having to actually key in the SQL, because it's auto-generating that SQL for us. Okay? So now if we look here, we have a table called employee date of birth. And if we look at the design, we're going to see that it has that information. And we can kind of cheat and do a right click, script, create. So I'm trying to see what the SQL would look like if I wanted to create that object. And I click on it and we'll see that, I'm just going to remove the first part, that the command is create, and then the object type, which is a table, and then the object name, which is employee date of birth, open quotes, the first column, the data type of it, which is a varchar 50, and then the second column, and then the data type of it, which is date, and then closing that quote. A couple of things to note is, as I have multiple fields, I'm going to put a comma up until the last one. So when it comes to the last field, I don't need a comma after it. So if I had 5 fields, the first 4 will have a comma at the end. The last one does not need that comma. Number 1. Number 2, notice after the data type, there is a null, or I could put not null. What does that mean? That means, is that field required or not required? If it's not required, then it's not null. It has to be populated. If it's null, it means it's not required, and as such, people can enter the name sometimes and not enter it other times. So the command to create a table is create table, the table name, the field names that we're adding in there, the data types, and then we identify whether it's required or not, and then a comma up until the last one, then we don't need a comma. Open quotes, close quotes at the end. And that is a SQL command to create a table. So now that we've created the table, we'd like to go in, let's open the new query, and alter the table. So we have this table over here. We're starting a new command in line 14. We'd like to alter the table. We'd like to add one more column. We should have had an email in there, and we forgot to add our email. So how do we do that? We type in alter table, and the table name, which is employee date of birth table. So now we'd like to add a column, and the column name is email. And email is going to be a varchar. Let's put that at 100. And then it's going to be null. So let's go ahead and run that. Execute. And it says that it's done. So now if we go back and look at the script of that table, we should have a third field called email. And sure enough, we do have that. And I'm just parsing it so you can kind of see it in a simple form that we have the create table. That's a table name. The first field, which is name. The second field, date of birth. Third field, which is email. The varchar, the date. And then the varchar. And then all of them at this point are null. And we have a comma at the end of the first ones. The last one does not have it. Close quotes. So now we have the script to create that table that it's actually created. So first created the table, then we use the alter command to modify that table. Now we want to get rid of that table. We're done. So what's the command to get rid of it altogether? It is to drop table, and then we put the table name. Drop table. Table name, if we run this command, that table disappears altogether. One thing that's nice, again, about relational databases is they have very beautiful user interfaces. So whether you're using Oracle SQL Plus or Oracle Enterprise Manager, whether you're using the MySQL interface, whether you're using SSMS, such as SQL Server Management Studio, there's also beautiful third-party products out there, such as Toad, which is by Quest, and there's a lot of amazing products that give you that user, the GUI interface to create much easily. But the more you understand the SQL, the more powerful you are in creating those objects, understand kind of the detailed information that goes into it. So again, I can run this, or I can just go in to my table, right click on the table, and script table as so I can create. In this case, if I want to drop it, I could just click here and it's going to auto-generate that script for me, which is to drop that table. And now if I execute that command, it's going to drop that table altogether. So now we saw the 3 DDL main commands, which is to create an object, in this case, a table, modify it, which is to alter, and then drop. So create, alter, and drop a table. Again, we did mention that there are different objects, and all of them use the same commands in SQL in terms of those 3 statements. So if I wanted to create a trigger, it will be create. If I wanted to modify it, it will be alter. And if I wanted to get rid of it, it will be drop. Another object within programmability, within the major databases, whether it's Oracle or SQL or MySQL, like a store procedure, If I wanted a new one, I would create. If I wanted to modify it, it will be alter. If I wanted to get rid of it, drop. Another object within a table is an index. If I wanted a new one, I would create. If I wanted to modify it, it's alter. If I wanted to get rid of it, it is drop. Thank you for your time. With this, we come to the end of this session, and we'd like to thank you for joining us. And also, don't hesitate to visit our website at learnitcoursesonline.com to leave your feedback and reviews. And also look at our events. We have a lot of free sessions, and we'd be more than happy to have you join at any given time, and also sign up with us for our newsletter. Thank you and have a wonderful time.